Hello, today we're going to look at paginating an Ember app that connects to a Rails API. I've started a simple blog API for us to work with. It has one main resource, posts, with a few basic fields like title and body. Let's start by cloning that project. Alright, I've tagged a few versions for this, and we're going to start by checking out the earliest version, which is 001. And we're going to bundle and do the migrations for the database. If we start our Rails server, we should be good to go. We can verify this by running over to our browser, visiting port 3000/posts. We can see we're returning a blank object with nothing in this array. Now let's get some sample posts for us to work with. So I've went ahead and made a quick seeds file for us to work with. Let's take a look at what that actually is. Okay, so all it's doing is grabbing 2,000, or it's making 2,000 fake posts. So again, super simple body, and then using Faker to just throw some data in there. We can verify this by going over to our browser. And since I don't have any JSON prettifier installed, let's just go back and hop in Rails console and do posts. And you can see there's 2,000 posts. Call it toy blog, and now npm will do its thing. Cool. And since we're using Rails active model serializer, we'll go and install the corresponding active model adapter. And go ahead and generate an adapter for the application. Just for sanity, we'll go ahead and kick off Ember serve to make sure everything's working. There we go. And since we kind of know what we're after, let's go ahead and generate our model for post, which is singular since it's just the model. Then our route for posts, and open up Sublime. Okay, so the first thing we'll do is let's go ahead and hook up our model. So, right. And I'll just go out and fill out the fields we talked about earlier with their corresponding data type. Okay, so next on our list, we need to do the router, which will be responsible for actually grabbing all of our junk from the API. Probably a better word than junk. And we're using Ember data, so we can use this nice store syntax. And then let's go to the template and wire up something super simple. Each model is post. And let's do what we have. Title, right? I'll visit our /posts, and nothing loads. Awesome. Let's see what's going on. Cool, so we never actually set the host up for our adapter. Let's go do that real quick. It's just like live coding, kind of terrifying. So put the syntax for that. Okay. And remember, we are using the new active model adapter, which is a separate project from Ember Data, just so we can be future-proof. Support default active model adapter.extend. Set up our host, which should be and I've already configured all the core stuff with these servers, so it should not freak out that it's cross origin. And please work. Cool. So you notice we're getting tons and tons of stuff back. And these are just all the titles strung together. Let's go ahead and make that a little bit easier to read. Okay, so you see even took a little bit to load, and we've got titles for days. Like a project called Base CSS, which is like super lightweight CSS framework. So let's just go ahead and install that. Just to make stuff a little bit easier to look at. And just put the one-line import. So we're just gonna import its location in Bower components, base CSS, CSS, base CSS min. Save. Restart for good measure since we just added a new project. You can see it's a little bit nicer, and let's go ahead and add came up with just a quick template for this offline. Okay, so, and again, this is just to clean up our views a little bit, make it easier to look at. So we have all these posts. Let's get rid of the welcome to Ember. And just to reiterate, we're in /post right now, so if you're following along and you're not seeing anything but welcome to Ember, please make sure you navigate to posts. This is really the build-up to our main problem and the reason we want to paginate. So we start with 10 results. You know, we're retrieving a trivial amount of data, and it's not that big of a deal. We move to 20. It's more data, but not really going to affect performance, maybe the way it looks a little bit. But I mean, even up to like 84, which was just a convenient number of my grid on Sketch, it's going to start to slow down from the database, especially if you're doing any complicated logic on the back end. I mean, we could even handle that on the front end without flooring performance. But inevitably, we get to a point where the sheer quantity of data coming back is crippling for our applications. That's really where pagination comes in. So instead of delivering one massive payload to the client, we'll break it up into small indexed chunks. Pages would refer to the indexes inside our data set, and page size is just the variable we use to control the size of the chunks we're returning, which is how big our payload will be to the front end. So we'll effectively accomplish this via query parameters. So passing it to our backend to /posts, then we can pass in the page and also the size of our page size. So we can navigate from page to page just by changing the query parameter 1, 2, 3, and also we could adjust our page sizes. So if we wanted to experiment with giving more to the front end or less, we could do that. So let's get back to our code and do this in the API. Our first stop is to install Kaminari. Gem file. Just toss it in there. And Kaminari, according to this docs, is a sophisticated paginator for modern web apps, web app frameworks, and ORMs. So let's demystify that just a little bit. So post.all, but if we went and did post page 1, first of all dot size 2000. So let's go ahead and do post page 1, and then say per 10, which is adjusting that page size. You can see we're actually returning 10 pages, and also you can see that the first post on page 1 is different from page 2 because that's actually navigating the chunks like we talked about, not with our URL yet, just this is what we'll use in our controller. So let's go to the post controller, and we'll just do this on the index route, and we won't mess with anything else really. So just go ahead and grab our params. So page, that's the actual value coming back from our query parameters, and we're just going to set the default to 1. And if you're not using Rails right now, this should be fairly applicable. Focus more on the URLs and kind of what I'm saying rather than the actual syntax because it's all fairly transferable. And then per page, and this params actually just grabs the query parameter from the URL in this or, and we're passing in a default in case. So if you don't pass in a page, it'll just say, okay, it's cool, it's probably page 1. Same thing, it's showing 5 per page. And so instead of setting posts to post.all and passing that to the serializer, we'll do page info. So we can get a little long for a second. Okay, so page info. So just like if you remember over here where we're passing in which page we're accessing, so we're just doing page info page, which if you don't pass it in, it's 1. If you pass it in, again, that's how you can navigate these chunks from the URL. And then per page info per page, and again, that's so we can adjust the actual size of these chunks coming back. If we save this, if all went right. It doesn't work. Let's see what's going on. Going to bet syntax error. Oh, well, we did install new stuff, so let's restart our Rails server. And, well, yes. Okay, cool. So 25 is coming back. Supposed to have 5 coming back. Let's see. Okay, page. Okay, per page is not page. Oops. Let's see if that fixes it. Okay, so 25 is just the default from Kaminari. Again, we're setting it to 5. So instead of 2000, we just have 5 coming back. Cool. So a couple problems. One is we don't have the actual total. So even when we do paginate, we'll need some method to pass back some higher level data about our data set. And then we don't have any way from Ember yet to navigate. So first things first, let's actually hop over to, let me open up my actual Chrome. So I did have just a Chrome Canary running just to kind of simplify things, but I have just on Prettifier here. So we can see this one post object coming back. Let's go ahead and to return kind of more information about this post data set in general instead of just our payload, we're going to use something called the meta key, and we'll do this in our serializer. let me just show you kind of what that will look like. I think that'll be the easiest way. This is going to get a little codey, so I might mute and then kind of just go back and explain. But I'll start off by pointing out we need to post this page info we're taking here to our serializer, and now we're going to add that meta queue I was talking about. We'll see y'all in a few seconds. Okay, so just to kind of run down, this is really what we wanted, and we have this object that has literally metadata about our overall data set, and if we toss it a different page, you can see what page we're on, how many we're returning per page. Specifically, we have this total coming back, which will solve one of our problems we talked about earlier, and then this how many pages we have, in case that was interesting to say, page 3 out of 400. From the code, again, we kind of grabbed all those values, or as many as we could from the controller and calculated the rest, and then we're just returning them on this meta pagination hash. I'll post a couple links in the blog post in case anybody's interested in reading a little bit more about what's going on here. And just so this is a little bit more Ember-y, I'm going to camel case, which is probably not technically right, but I don't feel like doing the Ember side. Okay, so now we're going to start the pagination process in Ember. And again, we knew the general values we wanted. So I guess we should start, let's go ahead and start in the route. Not the router. And so right now we need to figure out a way to pass query parameters to this model that we're looking at. Because right now we're just running the dummy default query. So let's start by just assuming that we're going to have some params coming back and pass them into this call here, which Ember data will put as query parameters. And also, since when these change, we're going to refresh our model, we need to state that. And we haven't actually made this page variable yet. It's what I'm going to name the query param for what page we're on. And I'll save that. And let's go ahead and do we have a post controller? I don't think we've done that yet. Cool. So let's generate a controller. So for query params, we really need a controller to run those through. So Ember G controller posts. And this will associate with the same route that we were just messing with. Controller posts. So nothing yet. So we're going to start off by stating page as a query parameter, and then setting the default to 1. I guess we wouldn't technically need to do that since well, no, let's go do that. And then just because I know I'm going to want to expose this on a template, we'll go ahead and grab the metadata computed. And we want this this computed property for the metadata to change when the model changes. So we'll pass that in as the dependency. And then Ember Data has a method for this. Metadata for post, and that will look up the metadata key that we just created. And we're going to return ember.get. And the reason I'm doing ember.get here is previously when I was messing with this, it returned just a raw object on the first call, then ember objects on the second one. So just to make sure this works, I'll link you to another good video about the screencast that goes over the reason why you would use ember.get. But essentially, it's a nice getter method for rando objects as well as ember objects. So it's not going to throw any errors if we're messing with either one. Cool. So right now, go away break timer. Right now, we don't have. Let's just go back and make sure we're not vomiting errors on the Ember side. Let's go back to Canary. Cool, so no errors. Let's go ahead and use that metadata to make sure that we're returning what we think we are. Oops, that's the Rails. So we'll go into posts.hbs, which is in, probably should be doing a better job. That's app, templates, posts. And so right now we're just returning model length. Let's go ahead and do the, so we call it total. We capitalized. So cool. So this now should be, instead of 5, we should be returning 2000. Cool. So this took care of the first problem. We're returning more general data about that data set and displaying it here. We still need a way to navigate. So kind of the Ember way around that is, instead of messing with affecting the URL, we've bound the model to refresh when this page object refreshes, which we have right here as a query parameter. So every time we affect this page, we're going to actually fetch new data from the server. So, and I'm just going to make a really simple next page, and you would wrap some additional logic here to make sure that you don't page out of bounds and stuff like that, but we'll leave that as an exercise. So we'll get the page, and then we'll set the query parameter page as its current value plus 1, and then pretty similar on previous, we're just going to take away 1. So now that we have these actions, let's go ahead and tie them into our template. And instead of typing out anchor tags, I'll just copy and paste them from my other example. And so here we've bound previous and next actions to these text links. And if we go look, so we have really simple buttons here. Cool, so we are paging. You can see clicking on it, we still only have 5 per one. You know, we could actually add those buttons at the bottom too, which we can do on off the script. Well, it's pretty bad off the script, but we'll just do this for simplicity. So if you had an actual reading type thing, and again, you probably want to do some type of scroll top if you were actually using this. So we're actually going through the different pages here, and we could go all the way out to, you know, as far as we wanted. And again, we're training enough metadata. You could put X out of X pages, or do some more complicated page direct page style pagination at the bottom. But this is really the bones of it, and just for completion's sake, let's look at what's happening in the network tab. We can see it's actually firing off the request with the query parameter that's returning that page. So everything is working as intended, and that is pagination with Ember, with an Ember app using Rails API.